Welcome to the Bookish Introverts Podcast. Join host Amazon bestselling author Brett Nelson and avid reader Melanie Dyer as they dive in to review books they've read, then chat with the amazing authors behind them. Quiet minds, big bookshelves. You don't want to miss it.
Hey everyone, and welcome to the very first episode of the Bookish Introverts Podcast. I'm your host, Brett, and this is your other host, Melanie. Say hi.
Hi.
Don't be shy.
Hi.
So we are here, and since this is our very first episode, I thought we'd sort of give everybody a little overview of how the podcast is going to work. So basically, Melanie and I have very differing ideas of
Yes.
differing types of books that we like.
Very, very.
I tend to land more on the mystery, thriller, suspense type stuff. And you, tell them what you like.
I like historical fiction. I like historical romance. I like classics and family stories.
And I don't.
Some fantasy.
I don't like classics.
That's an issue, but I'm willing to continue the friendship, I guess.
We can still be friends.
We can still be friends. We'll work on it.
Okay, we'll work on it. I have a feeling you might make me read a few here and there.
I might.
Like which one? Do you know right off the top of your head? Which one do I need to read?
There is a book, and I cannot remember who the author is, but it's called Treasures in the Snow.
Never heard of it.
Technically it's a kid's book. I also like to read some YA or children's, if you want to call it that.
Mm-hmm.
It could be classified as a classic, though, because it was written quite a while ago, but it's set in Sweden, I believe.
Oh.
And it is a Christian book.
It's a Christian book. Okay. Well,
yeah, very interesting.
Maybe we'll check it out sometime.
We might.
Is that your favorite classic?
It is not my favorite, but it just popped in my head for some reason. My favorite classic book is Anne of Green Gables.
I've heard of
for sure.
Anne of Green Gables.
You have heard of Anne of Green Gables. You
never read it, never watched it. And you've probably done both.
Oh, yes. Not the Netflix show, but that's another story.
Uh-oh, what's wrong with the Netflix show?
I don't have enough time.
Oh, okay. I
don't have enough time.
To tell why we do not like that.
No. There's an acceptable miniseries, but it's not that one.
It's not that one. Okay, so Netflix, you need to know that she does not approve. So
I do not.
You do not. Okay. Well, there we go. So since we have such varying genres that we like, we're probably going to be stuck reading books that we don't necessarily like.
Wouldn't necessarily pick for ours.
Otherwise read, yeah. But I think that could be a good thing in the long run because we want to appeal to a wider range of people on the podcast. And so that's kind of what you can expect from us. We may do a mystery suspense 1 week and a historical 1 week and a fantasy 1 week. You
never know.
Yeah, you never know. They're just going to have to tune in and see what we're doing next. So that's one thing. We both really enjoy Christian fiction. So probably that'll be a lot of what we the books that we're going to pick up and read and discuss.
Yes.
But we both also like some secular books,
yes.
Clean secular books. So we're going to do a little bit of both those. And you mentioned family dramas.
Yes.
You like, I really like that. Yeah. Not a fan of romance. So that's why I kind of drift more toward the family.
You're not the romance person. I love romance. I love romance.
Are you one of those weepy?
Doesn't have to be weepy. I just want everything to be happy at the end. I want the fairy tale.
And I like a good murder.
I want the fairy tale.
You want the fairy tale.
No murders in my fairy tale.
See, if you could have a murder mystery with a little bit of romance, I can handle that. But I have a feeling you're probably going to make me branch out into a romance.
I am. You have no choice.
What romance do you want to look into while we're at some point? Do you have is anything popping into your mind?
Golly. I don't know.
Nothing popped into our mind. So
Nothing popped
there's
into
the
my
answer.
head. Not just a romance. Oh. Well, I don't know if it classifies as a romance, but Christie could be a romance novel.
I've heard of Christie.
but it's also based on a true story.
Oh, it is?
Yes, it is.
Oh, cool.
It is indeed.
Okay. So there you go. That's some of the things that you can expect from us. One thing that we do plan to do on the podcast, in addition to talking about books on our own, we also are going to bring authors on
Yes.
to discuss. I'm really excited to do that.
That will be exciting.
Yeah. So I think we're going to do, for sure, we're going to try to reach out and do some authors that, you listeners would recognize them. But
also some lesser known ones.
Yeah.
Indie authors.
Yeah. I think that
maybe
would be cool.
Some local.
Yeah. Maybe some
that
local,
cool.
Or maybe just some lesser known ones just in general.
Yeah.
And maybe it's because I'm an author myself, but I kind of have a passion for reading lesser known authors. And honestly, that's kind of more of what I read. I read a lot more lesser known authors than famous authors. So, and plus that will give you, the listeners, a chance to maybe hear about a book or an author that you've never heard of. Because I think
that's always nice.
Yeah, that's always nice. I think you tend to read mostly the same authors over and over.
I tend to stick to what I know. That's just how I.
Yeah. So we're going to broaden your horizons and maybe the listeners' horizons as well. Yes. So, because there are a lot of good, not famous authors out there. I've read so many books and I've thought, oh my, why is this person not more widely read? So that's part of my goal in that. In addition to the famous authors, I want to introduce you guys to some of the lesser known authors as well.
Yes.
So that's one thing that we are planning to do on that. Another exciting thing that we want to do on the podcast is about the readers.
Other readers.
Yeah.
Guest readers.
Tell them a little bit about that.
We're introverts, but we have friends. And we have at least one that has already said she will come on the podcast. It's dependent upon the book. She's
and the book
it's not a book that you would probably necessarily enjoy, but it's one I've wanted to read for a few months now because I keep hearing about it. They made a movie out of it. You can't watch the movie and cheat. You have to read the book.
Oh, you do? Okay.
Yes, you have to read the book.
Well,
I'll read the book.
It's a long book. It seems as though I might be outvoted on this one.
I think you might be. But yeah, we're hoping to have some guest readers on at some point as well.
Yeah, well, and another fun thing, like some of the people that we live locally, we may bring them on. But another fun thing that I think we could do is maybe at some point, if we have any listeners that are avid readers,
yes,
it would be fun to maybe bring them on.
That could be fun too.
Yeah, we'll use this modern technology that we have to bring in. So that's something that we might do at some point.
Yeah.
So, okay. So with that said, why don't we move into sort of the reason we're here today? And so since Melanie chose this first book, I'm going to push it over to you, and you tell us a little bit about the author and what the name of the book is.
Okay, so what we've read is, it's a book called The Woman from Lydia. It's by Angela Hunt, who is a New York Times bestselling author. She's written over 165 books, which blows my mind. I've tried the writing thing and my mind wanders off the path too much. I never finish it. So I'm impressed. I'm impressed when someone finishes one book, much less 165.
Yeah. I was real pleased with my 6 until I heard that she did 165. 165. I'm like, I will die before I ever get that many books written.
So it's she has apparently sold more than 6 million books worldwide.
Decent.
The Tale of Three Trees, The Note, and The Nativity Story are among her New York Times bestsellers. She began writing in 1983 and published her first book in 1988, which is pretty fast for the world of publishing. She has been nominated and has won several industry awards. The ECPA Christian Book Award, the Christie Award, and the Holt Medallion. And the Romantic Times Book Club has presented her with a Lifetime Achievement Award, which is amazing.
That's
in 2006. Her best-selling novel, The Note, was adapted into a Hallmark Channel film in 2007.
That's impressive. As an author, I wouldn't mind
crazy.
having one of my books adapted. So
she's taught at writers' conferences, and she was the keynote speaker at the 2008 American Christian Fiction Writers National Conference.
Interesting side note, I'm in that organization too as an author.
Fancy.
So, yeah.
Aren't you fancy?
Fancy.
In 2006, she completed a Master of Biblical Studies in Theology, which is more than I have done. And in 2008, she got her doctorate in the same field, which is also more than I have done, clearly. So wow. I'm just impressed with that.
She's just impressive. And I do have to say, at some point, I really liked this book. And I thought, okay, it would be a shame to not bring Angela Hunt on. But I'm worried that she might be a little bit too smart for us.
She might be too smart.
Do you think?
She might be.
Maybe she'll dumb it down for the two of us.
We can only hope.
Yeah.
She lives in Florida with her husband and 2 dogs. And she's even outstripped me there because I only have 1 dog.
You only have... Catch up, girl.
So she's got 2.
Well, plus, she probably has a beach, and we don't have that either. So
yeah, we don't have a beach.
We're landlocked.
Lake Louima.
Well, does that count?
Yeah, I don't think so.
It counts for something, surely. So
Chick-fil-A, I don't know.
Hey, well, I mean, that's God's chicken. Isn't that what they say?
Sure.
This is going to be very controversial. I'm not a fan of Chick-fil-A. I'm going to be de-churched for saying that.
I love their waffle fries. I love their lemonade.
Okay.
The chicken, I'll go to Popeyes.
I just don't understand the fascination with it among Christians because I'm like...
I mean, it's good. Their ice cream is good. Their frozen lemonade. Oh my gosh, a frozen lemonade from Chick-fil-A. So good.
Oh, so maybe I need to try that.
It's so good. But
good to know. I don't know. To me, I'm just like, it's deep fried fast food chicken.
Their grilled chicken nuggets are really good.
Are they? Oh, I've never heard.
With their Polynesian sauce.
Oh, okay.
Very good.
There's another horizon that I need to expand.
Squirrel.
All right.
Okay.
Squirrel. Yeah, that was definitely a squirrel moment.
Sorry. But, okay, so the book.
Yes.
The book.
Before we get into the book.
Yes.
I want to talk about the book cover.
I was about to say,
is that what you were going to say?
The book cover.
Okay. As an author, I am obsessed with book covers. And I can say when it comes, you write a book and usually you write it over a month or 2 or over a year's time. And it's like Christmas Day. You do all these concepts with your graphic artist, to get just the right cover. And when you get to see that cover for the first time, it is like Christmas Day. So one of the first things I do when I read a book, I study the book cover like crazy. And this is an amazing cover.
It's a beautiful cover.
Yeah. Tell them about the cover.
Tell them about the cover. Show them the cover.
Oh. Okay. Right. So it's got a woman on the front, and you hold that up. It's got a woman on the front. She's got like a white cloak on and her purple, I don't know what all the clothing is called in biblical days, but it's kind of blowing in the wind. The sky's like a purpley pink. There's ruins down at like ancient ruins at the bottom.
Looks like a coliseum of sorts.
A coliseum.
A temple.
Mm-hmm.
Which comes into play with the journey in the book. It does.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, it's pretty.
It's pretty. And at the horizon, there's a bright burst of sun. I don't know if it's a sunset or a sunrise. Yeah. So
I'm on board with purple anyway.
Yeah.
Favorite color.
Yeah.
But it's a gorgeous cover.
It is. It stuck out to me. So I was just like, okay, we gotta give the cover its due. So
covers are important.
They are. Well, that's. I'm sure it's for you the same as for me. Most readers, you see the cover, and that's like makes you determine whether you're going to pick it up and read the description, and then if the description's good, then maybe you'll buy the book. So we need to give it its due.
Absolutely. Yeah. So good job, cover artist.
Yes, good job.
Well done. Okay, so the story. Main character of the story is Euodia, who is
and good congratulations on saying that right. At least we hope she said that right.
Struggle with some of these names. I do. She purchases a slave named Sabina, a young girl, 13.
Mm-hmm.
She purchases her with intent to free her, as she has done with her other 2 slaves.
which I thought was really cool because back in the day, slavery was a very prominent thing in society.
Yes.
And it was a social status to have a slave.
Yes,
and the more you had, the more.
Status.
Yeah. So the fact that Euodia bought a slave with the intention of giving her freedom, that's a pretty spectacular thing back in that day. So.
Yes. And they don't really come right out and say it, but I think there's hints that Sabina might be from the Celtic regions, I believe. There were hints of that throughout there. But Euodia has two other servants who were also slaves. She purchased as slaves and gave their freedom to them. They continue to work for her as servants. She pays them a wage.
Yeah, they're employees.
Yes, they are employees. So they are.
But it is interesting to note that even though they were her employees, she had set them free and they were her employees, there was still the definite, you're not my equal.
Yes, they are still of a lower social status than she is. She is a widow who has lost her child, and you learn more about that as the books go on. And I think that's partly why Sabina captures her attention. It doesn't say how old her child was, but I had the feeling Sabina is older. But Sabina, before she is purchased, had a spirit of divination, a demon, basically. And this is
the ability to tell the fortune,
yes,
to tell people's fortunes.
Yes.
Yeah.
And this is where some biblical story comes in, which I thought was very intriguing when she started putting in very well-known names from the Bible into the story, because Sabina crosses paths with Paul and Silas, who have come through town. And Sabina is the young girl whom Paul cleanses, for lack of a better word, casts out.
He frees her from that spirit of divination.
Yes. And her owner at the time, Hector, who's our other character in the book, is not happy with that, because that was the only use she was to him. He didn't even want her. His partner had bought her. And all of a sudden, she's not worth anything to him anymore. And that's why Euodia buys her. She buys Sabina from Hector's partner. And when Hector finds out about it, he's mad. And Euodia is happy to have Sabina. She wants to give her freedom. She wants to show her the love of Christ, the love of God. And as she's done with the rest of her household, they all worship of their own free will. They're not forced.
No.
She is acquainted with Paul and Silas. And so she just, it turns into a very tangled. It's so tangled.
It is.
I didn't expect it. When I picked this book, it did not go in the direction I was expecting it to go. Just from the summary that I read, I was like, oh, well, this sounds interesting. I expected woman on a journey through biblical places, and I wasn't expecting the turmoil, and just so much goes on. I don't want to say too much because I don't want to spoil it.
Yeah, we're going to be careful about giving spoilers.
I don't want to spoil it. That's just horrible.
But it was so interesting the way she brought their stories together.
Yes.
Because I've heard of Euodia in the Bible. Had you heard of her before this book?
I had not technically. It's so funny that you say that, because I hadn't really, or I don't remember. But after reading this book, I think I've heard the name mentioned, either Euodia or Lydia, 5 or 6 times.
Well, and that's one thing
crazy.
I wanted to hit on this book, because there is a little bit of a controversy on whether Euodia and Lydia are the same person or not.
Same person.
The story is written in that it's the one and the same.
Yes.
So, and we may hit upon that a little bit later at the end of the podcast, but I thought that was real interesting, because I had read her in the book of Philippians. She's mentioned, Euodia is mentioned. and you want to hear? Okay, Euodia is mentioned in Philippians, and do you know why Euodia is mentioned in Philippians?
Tell us why.
It's crazy. I love it. Euodia, Paul is getting on to, he's reprimanding Euodia and this other woman, Syntyche.
Also in the book.
Yes, also in the book. She plays a prominent role in the book. And they were at war. They were warring with each other. And we all know you don't get between two women who are at war.
Someone wasn't returning someone's Tupperware.
Exactly. So yeah, the times that I've read her in the Bible, I always think how embarrassing to be mortalized in the canons of Scripture because you were warring with another woman and
you
Paul
were fighting, and Paul told you this.
Exactly. Paul said, "Get your act together and act like the Christian that you say you are."
That is embarrassing.
And how embarrassing would that be? That would totally be my luck. I didn't get mentioned in the Bible for doing something great. It's because I was fighting with someone.
In the annals of history for thousands of years.
Exactly.
You wouldn't shut up.
Yeah. Like, did you? Well, I guess since you had never heard of her before the book, but yeah.
I know I did not know that, but yes, that is.
Yeah.
That is embarrassing.
That was a total rabbit trail. But anyway, yeah.
It's okay. That's all right. There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah. So, yeah. So did you finish your book description? That was pretty much it.
I think so. I don't want to give away too much.
Mm-hmm.
Because, spoilers. I'm a spoiler-free person. Don't spoil me.
Yeah. But I think what we might do toward the end of the video, like there are a couple things I want to talk about that are spoilers. So I think at the end we may have like a little spoiler zone, and we will tell you before we get there. But there are a couple things that I kind of want to hit.
I agree.
But we'll let you guys know. And if you haven't read it and you don't want that spoiler, then at that point you can click off, and
yes.
So it'll just be short. But anyway, so yeah, this okay. I have to tell you. Historical fiction's not my favorite.
I know.
Yeah, it's really not.
I've read like a bajillion of them, and you're like, ew.
Yeah, I am. And last year, one of my reading goals was to read 5 historical fiction books, and I met my goal. There were some I liked. There were some I didn't. I don't think historical fiction will ever be my go-to genre.
I understand.
But this was my first biblical fiction book, and people. I loved this book. I mean, honestly, I've read 21 books so far this year. This is by far the favorite book I have read so far this year, probably in the last several years.
Impressed?
Yeah.
I'm impressed.
So this is a good moral lesson. Yeah, this is a good moral lesson for all of us. Sometimes it's good to branch out into something you don't think you'll like.
It's true.
My mama
Angela, huh?
Yeah, my mama always said, you can't say you don't like it if you've never tried it. So eat that broccoli. I
love broccoli.
I like broccoli. So anyway, so I want to know, since you chose this book, had you read an Angela Hunt before?
I had not. I don't know that I had ever even heard of her.
Really?
Which is crazy. But again, like I said, I tend to stay in my own little corner.
Your comfort zone.
My own little chair. So I had not. I came up, as you know, there were 3 books I chose. Mm-hmm. One of them is apparently very long, and we'll probably get around to that one because it is the book that our friend said she guessed on.
Yeah, in fact, she was pretty. I wanted to talk.
She was adamant about it.
Mm-hmm.
But we didn't have time for that one, and then I knew I was. I knew I was working with no net because I know you don't like historical fiction, but I am just drawn to it like a moth to a flame. And I read the summary of this one, and now that I think about it, I think the cover also caught my eye. I was like, "Ooh, purple."
Okay, so
moth to a flame.
if you've never heard of her, like, how did you even find this book? Like, were you
website? There was a website of Christian fiction.
Oh, okay.
I had heard of the other book that I had thought of. I think the third book might have been Karen Kingsbury.
I think it was a Karen Kingsbury.
And I had heard of Karen Kingsbury. I knew her, but this one just kind of, again, I think the cover I told you, purple. I love purple.
And it was an amazing cover. So
it was an amazing cover, and I liked the summary. But again, like I said, from the summary, the book went places I never would have guessed. Never.
Yeah.
So it was a nice surprise. I thoroughly enjoyed it. But
you want to talk about some of those places that kind of?
Well, I mean, some of them are a little spoilery, but
you want to save that toward the end?
It's mostly just I thought she would just be following Paul and Silas on their journey, and she was just kind of a disciple type person. I didn't expect all these added characters. I didn't expect the 2-person perspective. I didn't expect Hector to play such a large part.
I didn't either.
That was another surprise, the different perspectives of the characters, because you've got first person and third person.
Yes, which is very unusual in the book.
Very unusual, switching back and forth.
As an author, one thing they beat into your brain is stay in point of view, stay in POV. And this kind of broke that rule because the POV changed according to who the character was.
Yes, it did.
But it was not distracting.
It didn't. It threw me for a little while, but it didn't take me long to get into the swing of things. So I was pleasantly surprised by that.
And I think that may be the mark of a good, because I don't think a mediocre writer could not pull that off.
That's true.
I think so.
I agree.
I think that's the mark of a great author that you can carry off something like that.
Yeah, I didn't expect to get the historical lessons, I guess you could say. You know, you hear a lot of how you make the dye, how the slave trade kind of works. There's a little bit of Roman hierarchy lesson in there. Sometimes you get that in a historical fiction. Sometimes you don't. You never really know. Sometimes they're just like, hey, you should know this.
Yeah.
You're in this world.
And people like me who are just picking one up and reading it because you're trying to expand your horizons. I don't know all that stuff that everyone should know. So
you're in this world. You should know this.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and the few historicals I've read, they've been very heavy into like military or the Holocaust. And I think that may be one reason why I like this book, but it's because it wasn't as so much focused on stuff like that.
Right. Because you want to get more into characters too. Sometimes you can get bogged down in the details.
Yes, and this book was very character driven.
Yes, it was very character driven.
Yeah, which may have been the distinction on why I liked this one so much compared to others. Now, last year I did read one by Melanie Dickerson, and it was good. It was about the Holocaust, about the time of the Holocaust, and it was okay. It was good. I enjoyed it, but this one just blew every historical book that I've ever read out of the water. So as someone who enjoys historical fiction, how did this rank for you compared to others you've read? Like, was it as good as others, not as good as others?
I'd say it's easily as good as others. I don't even know if there are any more books in the series, but there was a series on Gilbert Morris? I was obsessed with them. Winslow, the Winslow family saga. And it picked up, I think, in the 1600s. And the last book I read was set in the 1920s, but it followed the family and the descendants all through. They left the old world and came to America and, followed through all that. I read them obsessively. So many. There's a lot of books, but I would say it was just really well written, and it kept your attention. It kept you going. You didn't want to really take a break.
No, you didn't. Well, you read the book in like 3 days, I think, 2 or 3 days.
3 or 4.
Yeah, it took me a little bit longer, but yeah. It was very enjoyable.
I wanted to see how it ended. I wanted to see how it ended. And it throws some suspense. There's a little bit of suspense in there.
There is.
A little bit of adventure. A little bit of supernatural.
And there was a tiny bit of romance, but honestly, not really. It was very light on the romance, which Again, probably was why I liked it, because
It's probably is why you liked
I just don't.
it.
I just don't want to read all the smoochy stuff. Sorry, I know. Okay, now before I do want to talk about kind of what we talked about, kind of what we liked about the book.
Oh, yeah.
If you want to go into specific, but before we do, I want to take a little rabbit trail, if you don't mind. I want to kind of go back a little and talk about there's a little bit of controversy. We haven't talked about this on this, have we? There's a little bit of controversy, according to biblical scholars, on Lydia versus Euodia.
Did we talk about that?
Have we already talked about that?
I thought we did.
How could I have forgotten? That was just like a few minutes ago. Okay, we've already talked about that. Okay.
So.
Okay. Well, then let's move on.
I'm sorry. I hate to tell you that.
Okay.
I feel bad.
No, don't feel bad. We would bore people if I said the same thing twice.
If that is not something we discussed, I'm sorry.
Yes.
But I'm pretty sure we discussed it.
The reason why we're confused, I guess we'll go ahead and admit it. We got halfway through this first podcast and we lost our Wi-Fi signal for a little bit, and it just Yes, we were so mad. We were so proud of ourselves because we were up into like the 30-minute mark.
Yep.
And it messed everything up, and the audio was all so yeah. So I'm kind of confused about what we've talked about in this one compared to what we've talked about in the last one, because this is technically our second time to do it. So
yes.
Okay, so we're just going to pretend like we've already said that, and if not,
there's a little bit of controversy as to whether or not Euodia and Lydia are the same person.
That's the gist of it. Yeah. Some people say that they're the same person. Some people say they're not. So yeah.
That's just the way it is.
I just thought that was a little bit interesting. So, okay.
It is.
So, yeah. Where were we headed before I interrupted
I don't remember. That's so sad.
That's so sad. Okay. Okay, Sabina.
Yes.
Let's talk about Sabina for a little bit, because, there's actually I think it's in Acts, is when Paul kind of cast the demon of divination out of Sabina. I don't think in Scripture she's actually named as Sabina.
She's not.
Yeah, so I'm guessing that's probably just a name that the author gave her to give her an identity. But I just thought it was really interesting the way, because when I read Scripture, I don't know about how you, but when I read Scripture, I think I tend to read it in kind of a parallel manner, in that, sometimes we forget that when we're reading Scripture, some of the things that we're reading interlap with each other. And so, like from reading about Paul and Silas casting the spirit of divination out of this girl, it never occurred to me that Euodia and this girl's paths could cross. Maybe it did, maybe it didn't. This is biblical fiction.
Yes.
And fiction meaning certain liberties were taken to create
Absolutely.
the story.
Yeah.
So, but I thought that was a very interesting story arc that she created for those women.
Was.
Yeah.
It was. I agree with you on that.
Yeah. So
sure.
it was a very interesting, and she went on a journey to get her away from Hector. Of course, Hector didn't want to, because Hector's
the worst.
Yes, he's the antagonist of our story. And he wants her to have her spirit of divination because he wants to build a racetrack so she can predict the winners and make him a lot of money.
First he's got to get the money using her
to be able to build the racetrack. Yeah.
And if she doesn't have a spirit of divination, then there's only one other thing a young girl is good for.
In those days, yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Yes.
We shall not go there.
No, we shall not.
That's a disturbing.
You don't want to go there. She danced around the edge of it.
She did dance around the edge of it.
And she did it well.
She did it well. It was very sensitively written.
Yes.
You knew where she was getting at, but she never actually went there. No. So, yeah. I thought that was just, I really liked the way she kind of created that story and put people together that as you read the Bible, you might not have actually considered that their paths would have crossed. So,
you don't think about things like that.
Yeah.
It's kind of legend.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not saying it's not.
it's accurate,
not saying
biblical.
it is a legend.
Yeah.
It's, in our minds, we create just, oh, well, this person existed and this person exists. We forget about all the other people that exist alongside and probably interacted alongside.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's not in the Bible, so we don't know.
Yeah, we don't know.
Thus, fiction.
Yeah, and I love that about fiction because I love that you can put a little bit of a fictitious spin on something, and and I'm sure there are probably some people out there that don't like that. That they think if it's not in the Bible, it shouldn't be. But I enjoy it.
I do too.
This was my first biblical fiction, and I'm definitely going to read more.
Yeah,
so, yeah.
I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah. So thank you for forcing me to read this book, even though I didn't want to.
See, I'm good for some things.
When she made the recommendation, I was like,
I knew. Even though it was an email, I knew he was sitting in his office going.
You knew, yes. You know me too well.
Same thing I'll be doing when he finally gets a paranormal book in there.
Yes. And I love me a good paranormal book. I do. Yeah.
So we've covered Sabina.
We covered
Hector. We're just non-spoilery. We're just gonna go with Hector's the worst.
He is, but I didn't hate Hector for the fact that he was an antagonist and he was the bad guy. I didn't all out hate him, and sometimes I do not like.
I didn't hate him at first.
Yeah.
We got there.
Yeah.
We got there.
And he was not a good guy.
He was not a good guy.
Yeah.
Hector was very bad.
Yeah.
Not the good guy in this story at all. We've got her two servants.
Mm-hmm.
Lydia's two servants are Euodia.
And her servant, can you pronounce the servant's name?
Which one?
The woman.
I thought Syntyche was the one that worked for her at the. Wasn't she?
She was a slave. Wasn't she her slave?
I don't think so. I think she was. I believe she was the one that worked with her at the. She's the one that she left in charge of
harvesting the snails.
Yeah.
Oh, you're right.
Yes.
Well, but I thought she was her slave that was left in charge.
She just worked with her.
I think you're wrong.
They wouldn't have been. I think you're wrong. You can say you think that I'm wrong, but you would be incorrect.
All right.
They couldn't argue if Syntyche was a slave. That would not be done.
True. Okay. But then again, she wasn't her slave. I mean, she was her slave, but she was her employee.
I think because it was Syntyche's mother-in-law that they had to haul with them.
Okay, so I'm just saying, I read this whole book thinking Syntyche was her slave.
I don't think Syntyche's the slave.
Okay.
I don't.
I will give you this one because I just probably missed it. And then her other slave was Adonis. No, wait.
It was not Adonis.
It's not Adonis.
Ariston.
Adonis is like
Ariston. Ariston.
Okay. Yes, Ariston. Yeah. Adonis is a Greek god, I think.
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
Adonis is. Yes.
And they gave a pretty good dynamic to the book too. I liked their characters.
They did. I liked their perspectives.
Mm-hmm.
They had a little bit of perspective, and they certainly had agency in the book. I could understand where both of them were coming from with all the actions that they made. So that was nice.
Yeah.
She went to great pains to explain how a slave would feel, even though freed, that the mentality is still there, and how long it took her two servants to work themselves free of that. She didn't want unquestioning obedience from them.
Right.
They still had to show, proper respect and everything like that.
But they had free will.
Yes.
And she treated them with respect.
Yes, she treated them with respect, and they treated her with respect. It was.
Yeah, but there was also that underlying, you are my slave, you are my employee, but it was still very clear that those employees were not of her social status, and it was very clear in the book that there was you're
There
not
was
the
a
same
divide.
as me. Yeah.
There was a divide, for
Yeah.
sure, because they were treated differently.
Yeah.
Even though, oddly enough, her Ariston was treated, it was like so many weird rules to Roman society because she was, I mean, to put it in terms I would understand as a historical freak, she was technically kind of a gentlewoman,
Uh-huh.
as
I
you would
agree.
call them in British society in the 1800s, which is where
Mhm.
I like to live.
Mhm.
But she would have been a gentlewoman, and like Ariston would be her footman or something. But at the same time, because he was a man,
Exactly. There was a definite, there was a definite
Yes.
back in those days, and I hate to say this, but it is a historical fact. Men were more valued than women.
It's true.
Women were not.
Women were to make more men.
Yeah, exactly.
That's
yeah.
And that's not true of all historical societies. Of all ancient societies, I should say.
Oh, is it not?
Well, the Spartans valued women quite a bit, I believe. There are
like it's more than a baby maker.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
There are several examples of matriarchal societies, but yeah, you've got your Romans are the big hitters, and they were
cook my dinner and have my kids.
Yeah. I don't know about the Greeks, but yeah.
Yeah. I'm kind of glad those days are over.
Patriarchy.
Yeah. Yuck.
I'm joking. It's a joke.
So let's go back a little and talk about Lydia. Lydia is known in the Bible as being the seller of purple.
Yes.
And back in those days, purple was the color of nobility.
Yes.
Or royalty.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought it was very interesting. I've never thought. I mean, I knew purple was a very significant color, and it was the upper echelon of society that had access to that color. But this book goes into some pretty cool detail about how they manufactured that color of purple.
Yeah, and I'm not sure how accurate. I think she had some notes at the end as to the accuracy of making the purple dye. I believe she said she took a few liberties, but that there were snails involved.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and like these women, like that's what they did all day long. Mm-hmm. They went to the banks of the sea and they and harvested these snails.
Yes,
to make the color purple.
That's her business. That's how she makes her living. She's a dyer of purple.
Yeah.
Or
a seller of purple. Yeah.
Seller of purple.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So I thought that was kind of interesting.
That's very interesting. And I mean, I know enough to know ancient dyes and usually made with plants and probably bugs and things like that. I'd never considered purple. I just kind of figured, flowers.
Yeah.
Apparently not.
So apparently not. Yeah. So it would be interesting to know, like, if that was like, I wonder how much liberty she took in that.
I think she said in the notes that she took a few, but not.
Okay. Now, because I did, and I cannot remember what the specific type of, she mentioned a specific type of snail.
She did.
That they harvested, and I did Wikipedia that. And it did mention that these particular snails were used in the manufacturing of purple in antiquity. Mm. So there's some element of truth to it. Yeah. It would be interesting.
I don't think she went too crazy with the liberty taking, but.
And we never question Wikipedia, do we?
No.
Mm-mm.
No.
Yeah.
You can learn everything you want from Wikipedia. May not be accurate,
but it gives you an answer sometimes.
Yes.
Yeah. So there's that. Any other points that you want to hit?
I like the mention of Hector's horse. I meant to look up the horse that he gets at the beginning of the book. He's very proud of it, and I meant to look up.
Oh yes.
The type of horse. I don't know if it's still in existence, but apparently it was high dollar back then.
And apparently the horse was the color of coal, KOHL.
KOHL.
I thought that was a department store, but apparently it's not.
Well, ancient Egyptians, they lined their eyes with coal.
Yeah, apparently that's what it was used in early cosmetics. So
Did you not go through an Egypt phase?
no.
Is that like a girls
Well,
thing that we do that? We
I mean,
go through a
I
whale phase, an Egypt phase, a Titanic phase. Am I the only one?
I think so. Yeah. I mean, I was very interested in King Tut for a while. Like for in the Egypt the the what are those things? Triangle, the pyramids. Yeah. So yeah. But never to the point of what they wore on their eyes. No, that never really.
I think I've just come across that in all the National Geographic documentaries.
But that does segue into one thing that I kind of noticed in the book. There is something about the book I didn't like.
Which is?
I didn't know. I had to keep stopping and looking up things because I didn't know what they were. Like there was this one. It was like a collabolaris.
Collabolaris?
Now, what in tarnation is a collabolaris? Okay, well,
I don't know. Kind of sounds like a musical instrument.
But it's not. Yeah, and I kind of got from context what it was, but I did look it up, and apparently it was a barn type thing.
A barn?
Yeah, like
a collabolaris raising.
Yes, a collabolaris raising. Apparently that was big in the Roman in the Philippian days.
I'm glad we changed that to barn.
Exactly. Yeah, and then of course coal. I didn't know what coal was, and there was another one, and I can't remember what it.
Strigil.
Yes, a strigil.
It also sounds like a musical instrument.
It's not a musical instrument. Do you know what a strigil is?
A torture device?
It sounds like it could be. And it was a piece of metal that people used in the bathhouses to scrape their bodies to clean themselves. It sounds horrible.
Gross.
Apparently they didn't have Irish Spring back then.
No loofahs.
No loofahs. So they had
While you're out there getting the snails, grab some loofahs.
Exactly. Let's get rid of these. You won't need a strigil. So yeah, I'm kind of weird about so I kept having to kind of look up things, like usually you can tell from the context what it is, and sometimes I'm the type of reader, I if I don't know what something is, I'll just keep reading and I don't care.
Yeah.
But in this book, I found myself kind of wanting to know for sure. Maybe it's just the mood I was in, but yeah. So anyway, yeah. Learning experience, man. Sometimes I felt like it interrupted the flow because I'm like, I didn't know what.
You don't know what to say.
I did, yeah. So and collabolaris. I mean, come on, that's a cool word.
Collabolaris raising. I can't tell you the last time I was at a collabolaris raising.
I'm telling you, maybe we need to have one.
I wonder if 6 brothers could fight over 6 girls with the townspeople at a collabolaris raising.
And
that's a musical reference.
Oh, I didn't get it.
I didn't expect you to. Not many people know.
And we could serve honey water at it. They drank a lot of honey water in this book.
They did, didn't they?
Yes.
I guess that was a thing.
Yes, they drank honey water and dried fish.
Fried.
Fried, yeah.
Or blackened fish.
Or blackened fish. Oh.
Not dried fish.
Honey water sounds just disgusting enough to maybe be good, but
suppose we could try it.
Oh, yeah.
Someday. So not today. I noticed there was a lot of prayer in this book, which I appreciated. There are, when you're reading Christian fiction, there are varying amounts of prayer.
Mm-hmm.
It depends on the book you're reading. Sometimes they'll pray.
Mm-hmm.
Every few chapters. Sometimes it's every chapter. Sometimes it's like, okay, I'm sorry, I don't mean to be disrespectful, but you're like,
it's true. Yeah.
Just move along, shall we?
And sometimes I skip over those parts.
Yeah.
But again, it points to the Angela Hunt. Her prose is pure
poetry. She has beautiful writing.
Yeah.
She's very good. She's a wordsmith.
Absolutely. Yeah.
There is poetry to her prose.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I don't know about you, but in every book I read, no matter how good of an author they are, no matter how famous they are, I always have a few eye roll moments when it comes to dialogue or just the narrative,
That's fair.
and maybe it comes from me being a writer too, but like I find it hard sometimes to read for pleasure because I'm constantly re-editing the way I'm like, I would not have wrote it that way. I would have wrote it. And it totally blows sometimes.
Takes you out of the moment.
Yeah. But there was not one single thing that I didn't have a single eye roll moment in her book.
Well, that's good.
Yeah. Did you?
That's nice. No, I don't think so.
I was just astounded. I mean, just technically, and again, I'm no English professor or anything. If there's anyone out there that knows more about it than I do, they might say it. But this book was just pure poetry. I loved it.
Well, she paints a picture for sure.
Yeah.
And that's nice. It's nice to have.
Yeah.
I didn't expect to travel as much as we did.
Yeah,
but that was kind of cool too.
Yeah,
different cities.
Well, you got to see like Macedonia. They went to Macedonia, and so. But she didn't beat you over the head.
No,
with it was just a perfect balance of world building.
And she gave you an idea of you take for granted now how fast we can get from one point to another. You think about driving through Texas and you're like, oh,
yeah,
I'll drive through Texas. It takes forever.
Yeah, we don't have to do it on a horse.
I mean, going through Texas back then probably would have taken like 2 weeks.
Yeah, and I'm sorry. I guess I'm privileged or something because I'm like, to drive from here to Texas in 6 hours. I mean, like that kills me. I'm not a road trip person, so I can't imagine taking 2 weeks to get to somewhere.
No, it's a good thing neither of us were on the Oregon Trail.
Yeah, I would not have liked that.
Never would have survived.
No, definitely not.
But
it's fun to read.
Or something.
Yeah, it was kind of fun to read of their journeys.
It was, and it was nice to get an idea of how long. You hear about Jesus walking all these places. You hear about Paul walking all these places, and you're like, oh wow, that's a really long way.
They were probably thinner than us too back then.
Well, yeah, because you had to walk everywhere.
Exactly.
Makes sense.
Yeah, makes sense.
Makes perfect sense. Did you have another point that was non-spoilery?
I do.
Other than just loving the book.
Kind of want to touch on. This could be a little bit of I guess some readers could possibly be triggered by this part of the book when it deals with the slavery.
Oh, yes.
Because that's just not the day we live in anymore.
No.
I didn't find it triggering. I don't find much triggering, but I thought it was very...
It is difficult to read because...
It is.
These people are just in a cage and they're pinching and poking and smacking them. And,
yes. That was actually one that stuck out to me. Like they would literally walk up to the cage and there was like 20, 30, 40, 50 people in a cage. And if they found the one that they were maybe possibly interested in, I mean, they'd go up and pinch them and slap them. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, that's just horrible.
Crazy.
Yeah, but it goes to show how different their culture was compared to ours today. Yes. And I'm not saying ours is perfect by any means. No. Our world is a dumpster fire right now. But it was eye-opening to see, I mean, we all know that back in those days, slaves were not, I mean, they were the lowest of the low.
Yes.
But it was, and the way Hector treated Sabina, I mean, he was sitting there in their restaurant.
Even he got called out for treating her.
Yeah.
The way like my other men.
Yeah.
Romans.
Yeah. And
why are you treating her so horribly?
Yeah. So that's pretty bad when you're treating your slaves so bad that other people are commenting on it. But like
slave owners.
There was this one scene where they were like in this restaurant or whatever, and he was eating like his fancy meal, and he was like throwing crumbs. She was sitting at his feet and he was throwing crumbs from his fancy meal. And I'm just like, oh, poor Sabina.
Bless her heart. Had a taste of freedom and then yanked away. I don't know which is more heartbreaking, if she had just continuously been with him or the coming out and starting to believe she was fine. And then he yanks her back. That's
back into reality, so to speak. Yeah. Yeah.
hope. Denied.
Yes. Well, exactly. She had that little bit of hope.
This little blossom of hope, and
then it just, as fast as she got it, it was gone.
Just gone.
Yeah.
It's horrible.
So, yeah. So that was a little bit hard to read, but I appreciated the perspective of getting to see that because.
Yes. And it really did kind of let you know just exactly, if you hadn't clued in already, what kind of a person Hector was.
Yeah.
Because other slave owners calling him out, why would you? She looks sickly. She needs more food. You should feed her better.
And even when people did that, like he was very mind your own business.
Yeah.
This is my slave.
He could do no wrong.
Yeah.
He could do no wrong. He knew what he was doing.
Yeah.
Mind your business.
Yeah.
She's mine.
She's mine. I'll treat her how I want. And that's just so. It was just such a eye-opening thing to kind of witness through her story because I've never really given that much thought to slavery. And, we all know they weren't treated well, but to see it so specifically.
So barely laid out. Yeah.
Yeah. It was very interesting.
It was. You are correct. It was.
Yeah. So that was kind of, for me, those were the kind of the high points of the story. Is there anything else you want to discuss about it?
I don't think so. I can tell you, other than Euodia / Lydia, whatever you want to call her.
Mm-hmm.
Ariston was probably my favorite character. I latched onto him pretty quick.
Yeah.
A few chapters in, I was like, oh.
And
I wonder how big a part he's going to play because I think I like this guy.
Yeah. And when we get into this spoiler zone, I think we'll talk a little bit about that. Yeah. We can't really say any more than that. But Hector, Adonis, Ariston had a kind of a twist. There was kind of a twist involving him.
Yes.
So that was, we definitely want to talk about that in the spoiler zone. So we've already talked about, I kind of wanted to talk, and you kind of beat me to it about the shift of perspective between their, so let's just for a quick second, let's talk about POV. What's your favorite POV to read in a book? Do you have
third?
Third is the one that's me, right?
No, he, she.
He, she. Yeah. That's my favorite too. Typically, I don't like books that have the
First person.
First person, yeah.
I have trouble with that.
Yeah.
I have big trouble with that.
Yeah.
Which is crazy because I have one of my favorite authors that writes in first person all the time.
Yeah. And sometimes I'll skip over books if they're written in the first person. But in this book, it was a little bit of adjustment like we talked about, but I think the book was so engrossing to me. Yeah. I really got used to it pretty quickly.
It just didn't bother me.
Yeah, and I really didn't even notice when I was reading in the first person. So, another good thing that Angela, she's a very gifted writer.
Yes, she is.
So,
very much so.
Okay. So, do you want to go into the spoiler zone now?
Spoiler zone, absolutely.
Okay, so we're going to talk about a couple of things that are definite spoilers in the story. So, if you don't want to hear any of that, now's a good time to click out. Before you do, though, I want to tell you, we've got a Instagram account for the podcast. If we would love it if you would go over and follow us over there. You'll get notifications of when we're posting a new podcast. We'll post some fun behind the scenes stuff. Mm-hmm. Do that. We've also got an email that you can email us at. We'd kind of prefer you go to the Instagram, but I know everyone. At some point, I think we're going to do a Facebook page too. Not everybody does Instagram. So I do want to let you guys know that you can find us on social media. So, okay, so now we're going to go into the spoiler zone. So we'll give people a second to click off. And what do you want to talk about?
Spoiler. Euodia and Ariston
getting married. They got married.
I was so happy.
No,
so excited.
Okay, was Ariston her slave at one time?
She purchased him and set him free.
So she purchased him with the intention. He was never her. Okay.
No. She
that's where I
set him free from the get-go.
Maybe that's where I got confused with Sentichi.
Oh, that's possible.
Maybe, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So
I wish I could remember the female servant's name, and it's not coming to me. It's just not coming to me. But I know you said that you didn't see the Ariston twist coming at all, like them in a relationship.
I didn't.
I have a history of shipping characters in things, books, TV shows, movies. Doesn't matter. Video games. I don't care. They lock eyes for more than 10 seconds, and I'm like, oh, they love each other. They should be together forever.
Forever.
Forever and ever. So there were a couple of things early on, and I was like, does he like her? I think he likes her. That's adorable.
And they
should be together.
Yeah, and there was a little bit of a love triangle in there too, because Sentichi was in, right?
No. What is hers?
Am I getting Sentichi and the others?
Yes.
Okay, there was
but the female servant, yes, she
had feelings
for him. I can't remember
either.
But yes, she did have feelings for him.
Which he didn't reciprocate.
He did not reciprocate. I don't even think he knew.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I was kind of on board, but I didn't think that it would happen.
Yeah, I was blown.
But the way it happened made sense.
Totally.
Him saying, you'll have more protection on this journey as a married woman.
Yeah, if I'm your husband.
With a widow that has a servant.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It made sense.
Yeah, it made total sense.
And she's, just, a marriage of convenience. Okay, I'm like, no, he loves you.
Yeah.
You don't understand.
He actually loves her.
Love him back.
Yeah. And there was a little bit of quandary there on his part too, even though he loved her, and like adapting from that employee to the
as her husband, she was, how to phrase this? As her husband, she was I guess in Roman society, inferior to him.
Mm-hmm.
So it was like a quick.
Yeah. A big adjustment for them, for both of them. Yeah.
A loop-de-loop, and they had to maintain. I mean, I think she was still basically calling the shots, but it was weird for her because having been a wife before, and a Roman wife, a good Roman wife at that, she was used to being subservient, and what the husband says goes. But now she's got this husband that she's been, kind of employing for the last 2 years, and I don't know if it was 2 years, but whatever. So it was interesting that they kind of worked through that, and I enjoyed that part of the story. I didn't expect it to happen. I was pleasantly surprised when it did.
But it was a brilliant writing move.
It was.
Because, the way she crafted this story, sometimes sometimes you can tell when an author just throws something in like that because they need it to make the story work.
Yeah.
It just flowed.
It did. It made perfect sense.
Nothing felt contrived.
He proposed and she prayed about it, and they got married, and then journey continues.
Yeah.
That was that.
Yeah. So I kind of empathized with him and her because you got to sort of be in their mind frame after this, and the things that a husband and wife are supposed to know that you can do in the marriage. They were both very.
Yeah.
Because he was her employee.
It was awkward.
But
they made it work.
Yeah, they were. Yeah.
They figured it out.
Yeah, and there was not anything explicit in the book.
No.
And not at all. No. So if anyone's worried about that.
They figured it out because true love conquers all.
Exactly, yeah.
That's the fairy tale ending.
You got your fairy tale ending. Another thing that I kind of found interesting about the book was when Hector took Sabina to the Enchantress.
Yes.
I don't know why, but I really enjoyed that part of the story.
I did too.
Yeah.
I did too. From her name, which I'm not going to try to pronounce.
It was such a cool name. Megere. Yeah.
I want to say, and again, like I said earlier, I don't know if I said it in this one or the last one we did, but I think they said Sabina hinted at her having Celtic, and that name would sound Celtic, and of course with the Celtic, Romans had their share of witches and enchantresses, but you also have the Druids coming into things. Celtic has a long history of
mysticism,
the Druids, and all that sort of thing. I'm sure Romans do too, but I'm not as
into
aware
that.
Of it not as aware of it as I am Celtic.
And again, Hector took her to this enchantress because he wanted her to give her back the spirit of divination.
Yes.
Divinity? Divination. Divination, yeah.
Yes.
We won't talk. Do we need to talk about the spoiler in this one, or do we need to let them have that one on their own? Do you remember? Do you know what I'm talking about? Okay, this is the spoiler zone, so let's talk about it. I did not expect Megere to be Sabina's mother.
Didn't we already talk about that?
No.
Oh.
I don't think so.
I don't know. No, I didn't expect it either.
We haven't on the air.
I thought it was interesting. Hector went to I think it was in the baths that he ran into this guy, and he asked him about the enchantress. And the guy just immediately tensed up and he said, well, if you do go see her, ask her what's become of my baby.
Yes.
So that was Sabina's father. And I was like, well, that was a weird encounter, but it served a purpose. She gave up her child in order to gain these gifts of being an enchantress, and pretty crappy trade, if you ask me.
And if there's anybody that's worse than Hector, it was Megere, whatever her name is. Megere. But I don't know.
I feel like it's a play on Megan or Megara or something like that.
Yeah, something like that. Anyway, it was a really cool name.
It was a cool name. And it added to her mystique.
Yeah, it did. It did. And I just, like I said, that I did not expect that.
I did
not expect Sabina and Megere. I didn't expect there to be a familial.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
I was surprised.
Yeah.
But pleasantly surprised. I was like, I did not see that coming.
Yeah, exactly.
Interesting.
So, so hopefully you guys, those of you that stuck around didn't mind those little spoilers. Was there anything else that you want to talk about spoiler-wise?
A little bit on Hector. I've read so much Christian fiction, and I just kept waiting. I was like, when's he gonna start to see the light? I was waiting for redemption for Hector. I did not get it.
No.
Hector was just the worst from beginning to end. And I was like, that's oddly satisfying and sad at the same time.
Yeah.
Because there were so many different things telling him, listen, you're going down a bad path. You've been on this path for years and years as a Roman soldier. Now you're free. You don't have to do what anyone says anymore. You have a chance to make a new start. Like his partner was trying to make a new start with a family, and Hector just conks him off. And doesn't even feel bad about it. Like the only time he felt bad about it is when he started traveling and he didn't have anyone to talk to.
Well, when he went to the magistrate and told him that he killed him, the magistrate was like, "Oh, well, did you mean to do it? No. Okay, well then you're good." Okay, I'm sorry. If I killed you and didn't mean it, I would still spend the rest of my day in some prison.
That's true.
So that was kind of weird too.
It was weird.
But I will say, I didn't mind so much that Hector didn't have.
No, I didn't mind.
Yeah, because one thing about Christian fiction, and I love Christian fiction, but one thing that kind of annoys me about Christian fiction is that it's like puppy dogs and unicorns and glitter falling. And it's like, no matter how bad a person is, they always get saved in the end. And they always turn out to be, gone from the worst person to the best person. And I'm like, that's not always.
Life isn't like that.
No, life's not like that. Sometimes
like that.
Bad
it's okay
people.
For some reality to sneak in. I like the fairy tale, like I said.
Yeah.
But it's okay for some reality to sneak in there. There's
Yeah.
nothing wrong with that.
Exactly. And I
Nothing
kind
wrong
of
with it at
like
all.
grit. And when I say grit, and I'm not talking about dirty stuff,
Yeah.
but I like more gritty stories that have a more of a touch of reality to it. And I get, when a person has a true salvation experience, that changes you.
Yes.
So I can see how a horrible person that Hector didn't seem interested in that at all. I mean,
No, nothing affected him.
no.
Nothing affected
So
him.
I think it was realistic that he didn't.
Anytime he felt bad about something, it was because it was affecting him adversely.
Yeah.
Now.
Yeah. It was. Yeah. Exactly.
That was all he cared about.
Yeah. Him. It was
He's
me.
just
Me.
not a person. Hector's the worst.
Yeah.
That's my review of this book.
Yeah.
Hector's the worst.
Yes, Hector is the worst. So, but I didn't, like I said in the beginning, though, even though he was the worst, I didn't totally hate him. I had an appreciation for his character.
Yes, as a villain, I agree.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I agree.
because I've read books where where it was the villain, and I was just like, so over this person. But
Can't they just go?
yeah, exactly. Well, thank you for introducing us to this book because I honestly, one out of 5 stars. What do you give it?
5, I'd say.
Yeah, me too.
Easy
totally.
5.
Yeah, and I'm so glad you mentioned it because, like I said, when you sent me those list of 3 books, eyes rolled.
I was trying so hard to find a suspense book in there somewhere, and I was like, man, I don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah, but I don't want you to do that. We're kind of going to take turns picking books. That way, we both, because like I said, we want to talk about a wide range of books.
Yes.
And so I'm glad you because first of all, I feel sorry for any books that I read after this because they've got a huge shoes to fill.
Yeah.
And it gave me my first experience with biblical fiction. I never really, even though I love the Bible, biblical fiction just never seemed like anything I wanted to try. So this has got me wanting to look in other historical fiction authors. So, I mean, you opened up a whole new
world.
Yeah, for me. Yeah. So thank you.
New world.
Thank you.
There's your Disney reference.
So now that means I get to have my Christian horror book. Ted Dekker. In Halloween, we're going to do a Ted Dekker book.
I do horror when it involves 2 brothers and a 67 Impala.
Oh, well, I don't know if that's going to work or not.
Ask Ted if he has any characters like that.
I will email him and ask him.
Okay.
We'll see if he gives me the time of day.
Yeah.
So anyway, well, you want to wrap this up?
Yeah.
Is there anything else you want to say?
About the book?
Or
really?
just in general?
5 out of 5 stars.
5
Thank you for hanging out with us on our podcast. It's our first time doing anything like this, and we're terrified.
We are. My finger trembled as I was pushing the record button.
It's been an interesting journey so far. I hope we get back together with whatever this one chooses soon.
I think we already know what the second one is. Should we tell them or should we wait and just wait
yeah, that's right. You'd already picked. Yeah, you can go ahead and tell them.
I think for book 2, I chose a Karen Kingsbury book, and it's called One Tuesday Morning. I think it's an older book. It's not one of her newer ones.
It is, I think.
Yeah, and it deals with September 11th, the September 11th event. And
yes.
I kind of I've had periods of time where I've been very interested in September 11th, and I binge a lot of stuff on YouTube. I'm just interested about the who's and the whys, and why kind of person thinks is so debased minded that they think I'm going to jump into a plane, kill thousands of people.
Who does that?
Yeah, who does that? So anyway, I just when I was looking through, I knew I wanted to do a Karen Kingsbury one because you cannot have a Christian book podcast and not talk about Karen Kingsbury because I mean she's like the top of the game. And
it's true.
Although I've only read a couple of her books. So anyway, we're going to read our next episode, unless something changes, will be Karen Kingsbury's One Tuesday Morning, and so. I think that's it.
I think.
Should we bid everyone adieu?
Yes.
All right.
I do.
Well, we hope we entertained you guys. Hopefully we maybe enticed you to want to pick up this book. If you've never read Angela Hunt, highly recommend it.
Highly recommend.
Especially if you like historical fiction and if you like biblical fiction. So what's your 5 out of 5? Me
5
too.
out of 5 for sure.
All right. Well, we're going to sign off, and we will see you at the end of May.
Yes, into May.
All right. Talk to you guys later.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for joining us on the Bookish Introverts podcast, where together we explore the worlds within the pages. Until next time, stay bookish.